We heard many of the huge imperatives for innovation in the previous talk. Advances in human biology have never been greater. The pace of advances in understanding human biology are faster now than they've been for many, well, ever. That's leading to a huge generation of data. Those data cannot be handled by individual groups. For some childhood leukemias which can be routinely cured, but there aren't many diseases that we can cure. We are in an era where cures become possible, and so there's an imperative for us to make sure that we take advantage of that opportunity. That requires some degree of openness. And finally, the societal issues which we've heard so much about insist that we must do what we do faster, we must do it cheaper, and to do that certain parts need to be opened. That openness is as true here, I believe, as anywhere, and clearly there is a strong innovation culture, there is a strong science base, and there is of course a very strong mathematical underpinning of much of the training in India. The causes of death in India are global causes of death. They may have different prevalence in certain parts of the world, but they are essentially global, and therefore innovation ultimately always has a global perspective, even if it has a local origin. Some things in particular, and I want to pick one from that list of causes of death in India. Some things you simply can't do alone, and one of the ones that I want to pull out is antimicrobial resistance, already mentioned. We are in an era where the drugs that have caused huge societal improvement, the ability to treat infections with antibiotics, those drugs are under threat because of the emergence of resistance. In some places, and India is certainly one of those levels of antimicrobial resistance are very high. In other places less so, but it's a worldwide problem. It's not, contrary to popular belief, simply an economic challenge that there is no profit in this. There is a problem, and that is if you want to make an antibiotic that is effective in drugs that are resistant to other antibiotics, society shouldn't use that drug very often. They should only use it when you need it. So there's definitely a counterintuitive market force which says invent it but don't use it. But that isn't the problem. There's a scientific problem, there's a clinical trial problem, there's the ability to understand how to actually achieve this, and that requires, I think, in this area and more than any other, a very obvious example of open innovation, much as we undertook for the malaria approach. This one, I think, is an important one that the world needs to get right and do it fast. So where to start? I think open innovation is the foundation for allowing a flourishing system. It's not one that remains perpetually open. So again, to reiterate, you absolutely need to own the IP of your product, and you need to at some point defend and protect what you have. But much of what we do, we overprotect in the wrong places. It requires investment from multiple sources, big companies, small companies, science funding agencies, governments. It requires a system that involves academia and involves the ability to